Nobody who watched them in 2018 would have predicted they'd still be here. Two people with no construction experience, no savings cushion, no fallback plan, living inside the thing they were trying to build, uploading videos to a channel nobody was watching yet. That couple is Spenser and Mackenzie of Life Uncontained, a YouTube channel that grew from nothing into one of the most followed off-grid homesteading channels in the country, with over 1.5 million subscribers and more than 250 million views across their videos. By the end of this, you'll understand why Spenser himself has pointed to Mackenzie as the person who kept the whole thing from collapsing. Not during the easy parts, but during the specific moments when walking away would have been the rational choice. 2 servers in Florida. That's where this story starts. Before the containers, before the solar panels, before the 250 million views, Spenser and Mackenzie were working restaurant jobs in Florida with no clear direction. Their own channel description says it plainly. They spent years not knowing what to do with their lives. That line isn't embellishment, it's the actual framing they chose for their public introduction to the world. What they did have was a pull towards something different. Road trips had given them a taste of what freedom felt like, in a way that restaurant shifts simply didn't. They weren't wealthy. They weren't in the trades. They had no background in construction, no training in solar energy, no experience building anything larger than what most people assemble from flat-pack boxes on a Sunday afternoon. What they had was a decision. In late 2017, they registered their YouTube channel. On March 1, 2018, they packed up their lives in Florida, sold their cars and their home, quit their jobs, and drove to Texas. Not to a new apartment, not to a rental property they could fall back on. They moved onto land owned by Spenser's parents outside of Houston, into what would eventually become the container they were building, and they started filming immediately. The channel launched with essentially zero audience, no subscribers waiting for the first video, no brand deals lined up, no guarantee that anyone would ever watch. Just 2 people who had made a call that most people in their position never would, and a camera pointed at the work. What the daving? That first summer in Texas, they converted an old barn into a solar power station. They lived in the structure they were trying to transform, and they uploaded every step of it to a platform that hadn't yet decided they mattered. What happened next is the reason this story spread across the internet. The numbers on a finished container home look appealing from the outside. People see the solar panels and the rainwater system and the clean lines of repurposed steel and assume the path to get there was deliberate and clean. It wasn't. Spenser and Mackenzie built their home from 2 40-foot shipping containers. The finished structure came in at 875 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, fully solar-powered, with a 7,500-gallon rainwater harvesting system handling all their water needs. Tesla solar panels on the roof, the whole build done without a contractor. But the process of getting there stretched across years, and it carried costs the subscriber count doesn't reflect. They had no income from the channel in the early months. The Patreon they launched was modest, contributions starting at $2 a month, and in their own words, it was the only thing allowing them to focus on the content rather than going back to work. Every dollar from supporters went directly toward camera equipment and the ability to keep filming. They were transparent about that from the beginning. The physical demands were real. Spenser handled the structural and mechanical work, the welding, the electrical, the plumbing, the weight-bearing decisions that a licensed contractor would charge tens of thousands of dollars to make. Mackenzie handled the creative layer, the design vision, the staging, the feel of the space, and the way the story of the build was being told on camera. Neither of them had formal training in any of it. There's a standout moment in the channel's early history that tells you everything about the scale of what they were attempting. When it came time to place the second shipping container onto the structure, a 16,000-pound steel box, they brought in a crane. It wasn't a dramatic YouTube set piece. It was a logistical reality. You cannot move 16,000 pounds of steel with determination and a come along. You need equipment. They needed equipment, and they documented every moment of the problem solving that got them to that point. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. Here's something that most people who follow Life Uncontained know in a general way, but haven't thought through specifically. Spenser and Mackenzie did not play interchangeable roles on this channel. They never did. From the very beginning, the labor split was pronounced and documented. Spenser worked the construction, the physical, technical execution of the build. Mackenzie worked the design, the aesthetic decisions, and the way the story was being communicated to the audience watching at home. That split matters more than it might seem, because those 2 functions, building the thing and telling the story of the thing, require entirely different skill sets. And when a channel like Life Uncontained is in its growth phase, with no guaranteed income and an uncertain future, those two functions are not equally weighted in terms of what keeps a channel alive. The construction is visible. You can see progress. A wall goes up. Outlets get wired. A deck gets framed. There's a physical record of advancement that provides a sense of momentum, regardless of how the channel is performing. Creative vision doesn't work that way. Creative vision requires holding a belief about the value of what you're doing before the evidence shows up to support that belief. Mackenzie's role was described repeatedly by the couple as bringing the creative flair to the channel. But that phrase understates what it actually means to be the person maintaining a vision for how a story should feel. When the videos aren't getting traction, when the comments are sparse, when the Patreon barely covers equipment costs, and when the question of whether any of this is going to work is still entirely open. Most people who know this story stop here. But the real story starts right now. No dits and down, Khan. October 2023. That's the timestamp on one of the most searched videos the Life Uncontained channel ever uploaded. The title was 3 words: We Lost Everything. The channel had been running for over 5 years at that point. They had crossed 1 million subscribers. They had a home that was largely complete. They had 2 daughters, Bo, who had grown up on camera as the build progressed, and Cam, born in August 2021, for whom they had built a nursery inside the container home months before she arrived. By any external measure, they had made it. And then came a video that told a different story. The details of exactly what was lost in that period were not spelled out with full specificity in the public record. What was documented is the tone, the raw acknowledgement that something serious had gone wrong, that the situation they were in was not manageable through normal means, and that the channel itself was caught in the middle of it. This is the kind of moment that ends YouTube careers, not with a dramatic announcement or a public controversy, just with a long silence that the audience eventually stops waiting to hear the end of. Channels that go through a "we lost everything" moment often don't come back from it. The audience drifts, the algorithm deprioritizes inactive channels. The momentum that took years to build evaporates in a matter of months. That didn't happen here, and the reason it didn't is the part worth examining closely. Here's what the comments kept asking. And here's the answer they never got, until now. April 2024. 8 months after We Lost Everything, a new video appeared. The title was, Back in the Mountains, Prepping Site for Off-Grid Cabin. They were building again, on a mountain this time, a different structure, a new chapter. And then in June 2025 came the video that confirmed what longtime followers had hoped for. We're back, overcoming obstacles while building our shipping container cabin. Same format, same approach. The same 2 people, still at it, still filming, still working through the problems in real time, with an audience watching. What kept the channel alive through the crisis wasn't a brand deal that saved them financially. It wasn't a viral video that reset the algorithm in their favor. It was a decision, made by 2 people who had very different relationships to the work, to not interpret a catastrophic period as the end of the story. Spenser's relationship to the work has always been execution-based. You have a problem, you solve the problem, you move to the next problem. That approach works extraordinarily well during construction. It doesn't answer the harder question, why keep making videos? Why document the hard version of this? Why not just step away and let the channel sit until things are easier? Mackenzie's answer to those questions, the creative one, the vision-holding one, is what kept the narrative from collapsing. She was the one who understood that the hard version of the story is often more valuable than the easy version. That audiences don't connect with channels because everything worked out. They connect with channels because something genuine is at stake, and the person on camera knows it too. She never talked about this publicly, until now. There is a version of the Life Uncontained story that sounds like a straightforward success narrative. 2 people leave Florida, build a house out of steel boxes, grow a massive YouTube channel, earn a reported net worth of around $1.8 million. Clean arc, good outcome. That version isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. The 250 million views didn't arrive because of the construction footage alone. There are dozens of off-grid and homesteading channels on YouTube. Many of them feature people with more experience, more resources, and more refined production quality than Life Uncontained had in its first 2 years. What those channels often lack is what Mackenzie brought to this one. She is the reason the story felt personal. The design choices she made, the living roof on the front porch, the layout decisions inside the container, the aesthetic of the space, gave the channel a visual identity that construction footage alone doesn't produce. She is also the reason the storytelling had emotional continuity. The way the videos were framed, The connection between one episode and the next, the sense that you were watching something that meant something to the people making it, that came from her creative orientation. Spenser has, in various interviews and on-camera moments, acknowledged the specific division of labor between them. He handles the technical execution, she holds the creative vision. He has pointed to her as the person who understood the audience in a way that he didn't come to naturally. That acknowledgement is significant when you consider that the channel bears both their names equally, but one of them was doing the work that no hammer or wrench can accomplish. The number that came next, nobody who followed this channel expected it. A second build on a mountain changes the story in a specific way. When Spenser and Mackenzie moved back to the mountains in April 2024 and began prepping a site for an off-grid cabin, they weren't starting over. They were expanding. The original container home, two 40-foot steel boxes turned into an 875-square-foot family home, was the proof of concept. The mountain cabin represents something different, the choice to do it again, harder, on more difficult terrain, with two kids, after a crisis that by all rights should have stopped them. Their Patreon page, which has been active since 2018, describes the cabin they were working on as eventually becoming a future guest house. The ambition of that statement is worth sitting with. They are not retreating. They are building towards something larger. A property that includes the original home, a guest structure, and an ongoing documentation of how a family actually lives when they've committed to doing it outside the systems most people depend on. The channel that started with a barn conversion and a solar panel in 2018 is now in its 7th year of continuous documentation. More than 290 episodes have been uploaded. The channel is among the most viewed in its niche in the country. The couple has daughters who have grown up entirely within the world this channel built. At this point in the story, most people walked away. What she did instead is the part nobody talks about. There is a tendency, when covering YouTube channels that have achieved significant size, to focus on the growth metrics and skip the period where the growth wasn't happening yet. Life Uncontained launched on December 26, 2017. For months, there was essentially no audience. Two people uploaded construction videos to a platform with no mechanism for discovery unless you were already being watched. They relied on Patreon. They relied on a small, early community of people who found them through shared interest in sustainable living and alternative housing. In those early months, the case for continuing was not obvious. The case for stopping was entirely logical. Go back to Florida, get jobs, find a path that had some evidence behind it. That they didn't isn't purely a matter of stubbornness. It's a matter of someone holding a belief about what the channel could become before the data existed to support that belief. And in the confirmed division of labor at Life Uncontained, the person responsible for holding that belief, the creative one, the storytelling one, the aesthetic one, was Mackenzie. Spenser's mechanical competence built the house. That's verifiable in every video he's ever made. But mechanical competence doesn't sustain a channel through its first silent year, through a public crisis in 2023, through the uncertainty of a second build on a mountain in 2024 and 2025. What sustains a channel through those things is a belief about why the story matters. And that belief, in this partnership, belonged to her. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. The simplest version of this story is two people who built a house and filmed it. The real version is two people who nearly stopped several times, who faced a public crisis that ended the chapter they'd been living, and who came back to document the next one anyway. Life Uncontained is currently in the middle of its second major build, a shipping container cabin on mountain terrain, with a documented return in June 2025 and active content continuing now. For anyone who stepped away from the channel during the 2023 crisis and assumed the story was over, it isn't. So here's the question worth answering in the comments. Do you think Spenser would have kept going without Mackenzie's creative drive holding the channel together, or was the build itself enough of a reason to stay?